Hello and welcome to the all-new NRLW Weekly podcast with me, Marley Silva, and NRLW legend Ruan Sims. Thanks to Light and Easy, fueling women in sport. On the show today, a huge weekend of upsets as the Raiders, Cowboys and Tigers all flex their muscles against competition heavyweights. Raiders co-captain Simaima Taufa joins the show and your listener questions are answered. Before we get into all of that, Ruan, you're sitting beside me and we are some very, very happy NRLW fans because we were spoilt with another great weekend of women's footy.
Wasn't it fantastic?
It was killer.
It was phenomenal. And it started on Thursday night. That Golden Point thriller was absolutely amazing. We'll get into that a little bit later. But that game really set the tone for the whole round. And we saw some great upsets.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to diving in to see how those teams are going to go this week.
Yeah, and I feel like it's pretty hard to predict, who's going to win what. But let's start with Ru's Wrap, your top three players of this round.
Top three players for me this round, it was very hard to go past Zahara Temara. Her kicking game was phenomenal for the Raiders. Like, she just controlled that outfit so beautifully. And I think she kicked 340 kicking meters, some great conversions as well, but just general play kicking and just her movement around the field was fantastic. The next one up, Ray McGregor for the Dragons. She was another one that had it on a string. Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. Another great turn up by her, and her halves partner in Tyler Nathan Wong really stepped up as well. So two halves in the first two, and then I've gone for Jakaya Whitfield.
Oh yeah,
on Sunday, just showing exactly why she's such a talented footballer. Like, she is strong. She doesn't shy away from contact. She knows how to find her way to the try line. She's powerful and she's very, very quick. Yeah. So, she was very impressive for the Tigers.
Yeah, she was. And this is sort of the first season she's had a bit more playing time since she came across from Rugby 7. So, yeah, you can see. And I feel like, we're focusing a lot on the Rugby Sevens converts this year, with Ivania Polite being someone we spoke about last week, and then Jakaya this week. Like, these girls, when they get in space, even Tyler Nathan Wong, as you said, like, they just are bringing some electricity to this competition.
Well, that's what you do in Rugby Sevens. You have to find space, and you have to be able to exploit the space when you find it, and you have to be able to exploit it quickly and powerfully, and that's why these athletes are so good when they come across. And these athletes that we're talking about, aside from Tyler, have had a couple of years already. So Jakaya's been in the system for a little while, but I think this is the first time she's had a full season of like Harvey Norman's or like the state league competition leading into it, and you can see the benefits in such a short period of time of just having a bit more footy under her belt. So so the converts are fantastic. And look, honorary mention as well, Kira Dibb was fantastic for the Cowboys, and Grace Kemp off the bench for the Raiders was very, very strong too. So
it's so hard to limit it to three.
I know.
I feel like that
mentions.
is a really tough question to ask you. Is there a particular highlight of round two that stands out to you?
I think, look, the one that probably stands out the most would be the Golden Point thriller, but I know that we're going to talk about that. Yeah. So I'm going to go with the Raiders' performance against the Roosters because I tip the Roosters as the strongest pack, the strongest team in this competition. And to see the Raiders at home perform the way they did, play with the passion that they did and the control, and to be able to shut out such an attacking team like the Roosters, I think that was really, really impressive. So
for sure,
the most impressive of a lot of impressive games this week. Can I just say?
A little bit above.
Yeah.
I was there on the ground on the sideline at that Raiders game, and having the first Viking clap for the girls, the way that the crowd really built for that game before the men's game that followed, and you could just see that they wanted to do this, for the jersey, for the community, and that was my personal standout as well, in a very tough field.
Tough field.
Well, let's get into that Golden Point thriller. What we saw right at the end of that match, Lauren Brown kicks the winning field goal after such a tight, beautiful game between the Broncos at the Gabba. How did you see it?
Yeah, iconic game at an iconic field. And after the first 10 minutes, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is going to be a runaway for the Broncos because they were just humming right from the start. But what impressed me was that the Titans were able to wrestle back a little bit of that control, and they were able to wrestle back some momentum and just flush the errors. The fact that they could flush those errors and then come back so strongly, like their forward pack was fantastic. Shannon Marto, she's just such a competitor. Yeah. Jessica Elliston, her leg drive and her leg movement is so good through the middle. And then you've got young Jorgensen, who came up with a couple of ripping tackles as well. So I think that they are really priming for something special this year, the Titans, you know. So seeing the way they started and then to be able to wrestle back that control, and Murph did so well with her rotation, you know, giving Loz a little bit of a break and then bringing her back on exactly when they needed her, keeping Brayley out there as well, keeping a very mobile pack so that they had options across the field, was very, very smart. And the Broncos were so strong to kick it off, and, you know, they came back at them as well. But it was just an incredible game of footy. So, I was pretty pumped to be calling that one.
Oh, yeah. It was such an incredible game to watch. And can I just tell you a quick funny story? I don't know if you caught it in the footage, but when Lauren kicked that field goal, their blue shirt assistant coach, Aaron Booth, who is a sidelined NRL player for the men's Titans team, who is loving coaching the girls at the moment, he was the first one in.
I know, he was the first one in. It was so fantastic. But you see, that just shows how much it means to them.
Exactly.
You know, and it's great.
The culture of it all and that pure joy, I think, reflected all of us watching it as well. So
absolutely.
Made me
laugh.
I
loved it.
We've already spoken about the fact that there was a couple of big upsets in this round. The competition, you know, I asked you the tough question of who you thought was going to be at the top and what it was going to look like before the season started. And I feel like you were hesitant on it because you probably anticipated more than I did that it was going to be so tight and there was so much talent across the board. And we're seeing that already in round 2. So the Raiders, as you said, we weren't expecting them to get on top of the Roosters. The Cowboys got on top of the defending premiers in the Knights.
Yep.
And the Tigers beat the Sharks quite convincingly.
Yeah.
I mean, is this what you were expecting us to see?
Yes. I was expecting an incredibly tight competition. And, you know, there were a lot of detractors when it was first announced that, you know, we're going to be diluting the talent pool. And there's times where you can sort of say, there may be a bit of a lull, but it hasn't. It hasn't lulled. And I think this is why it's so good that it's just forged ahead. It does make it very challenging. It will test depth, especially when injury and suspension and things like that. It will test teams and it will test clubs. But then you're blooding players a lot quicker and you have to upskill all of your players really, really quickly. Like it's a very fast-moving, fast-paced growth. And, this is exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be tight. I was expecting there to be upsets along the way because also, and I think we spoke about this in our first show, was because the girls or the players weren't forced or told which teams to go to. They selected teams based on what suited their lifestyle, what suited their progression, what they wanted to do, what kind of coaching they wanted to receive, you know, all of those sorts of things. We've seen this talent disperse naturally and the players are happy where they are. They're not being told to go somewhere. They've chosen to go there. And you see just the immediate buy-in and the immediate impact of that. And all of the senior players that have moved clubs and gone to new clubs, you can see their fingerprints all over those teams and you can see it just in how they turn up for each other, the way they train, the way they prepare, the way they turn out and play the game. So it's this is exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, you gave her an honourable mention. I think Kira did was what stand out for one of those senior players who's gone and really made her stamp on a brand new club in the Cowboys, and then to go up against her old team and to win like that was really impressive.
It was, and without her number one halves pairing because Tallulah Tillett still hasn't played yet. So when she comes back in, that's going to add, you know, even more strike to an already potent team, you know. And I thought Mooka was really great for them too when she came on, and there were some really great performances for the Cowboys. But this player movement has seen this incredible rise in the game.
I mean, it's such an exciting time for everyone who's watching or a part of it because, it certainly silenced the doubters about what kind of quality footy we were going to see. Now, the last thing about this past weekend that we need to talk about is something that the girls just did so well in the 2 weeks of July that they got.
Yes.
The Try July celebrations.
Yep.
That must have been part of everyone's contract when they started that. They needed to come with a Try July
Well,
celebration.
we were laughing about it. I think Gus and I were laughing about it with Alana on air. He said they must just set up an extra training session to work on their try celebrations because they were fantastic. Even this weekend we saw the Can, we saw the Conga, we saw so many
Gal
great
Broughton
ones.
did Thriller.
Yeah.
That was great. That was a good throwback.
That was very, very good. So, no, I think the girls have really taken to it like ducks to water, and it's the first time that Try July has ever happened because the competition's never been long enough for it to happen. So the girls have definitely embraced it, and I think how much did they raise over the
400,000 across the month.
NRL and NRLW. That is fantastic, and that'll go to great use to Nathan Stapleton and Dan Anderson and their families. So I think it is fantastic.
So good.
Yeah.
I am all about asking you the tough questions. Do you have a top 3 celebration or a one that really has stayed with you across these last 2 weeks?
The limbo really stood out for me. I thought that was a really good one. I quite liked the Conga as well on the weekend. I thought that was really good. And I loved Jess Surgis's try celebration because it was a tip of the hat to the Matildas who had won the previous night. So I loved that one. But there were so many great ones, and I don't want to miss too many as well. And then what about in round 1, the Raiders doing their own Viking clap after they scored that try? So there were some absolute crackers. There's some crackers.
Part of the highlight reel for this whole season will include a lot of that,
Without
I think.
a doubt.
So,
we
absolutely loved it.
Maybe we can get our listeners to vote their top try celebrations and they can let us know what they think.
Yeah, definitely. We should put that up
cool
there. See who gets the best one.
Yeah.
Light and Easy have been named Best Healthy Meal Delivery Service again, but you won't find us stopping to celebrate. We're busy making it easy for Aussies to achieve their well-being goals, and the results speak for themselves. Light and Easy, just good food and great results.
Welcome back to the brand new NRLW Weekly podcast with me, Marley Silva, and Ruan Sims. Thanks to Light and Easy, fueling women in sport. Now, before the season kicked off, we had the chance to sit down with Canberra Raiders co-captain Simaima Taufa to hear all about how she was feeling leading into her team's inaugural season. So here's this conversation. Simaima Taufa, you've brought massive energy the second that you've come into this studio. So can I just say, first of all, thank you for that. I feel so hyped and ready to go.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
You've been in this system for a while now, and you're watching this next gen of girls come through, the young ones who kind of were able to grow up thinking they want to be in this position. And as the game grows, I mean, it's even more opportunities for the next generation of girls. So I wanted to know, what advice would you give to those girls who are watching you now who want to be like you one day?
You can do it. Like, you can see it actually come to fruition now. I think for players, I've been here when NRLW's kicked off and debuted in 2014. And I'm grateful for the time that I started when NRLW wasn't envisioned for myself personally, because we never got to see it. When you're in it now and you see your young players, your Holly Dodds, your Soph, your Shantays, your Emma Barnes, and the ones that's coming through the system, and their process was easier than many of us that started a lot earlier. And I can speak on behalf of like players that went before us. It was tough back then, and they made a lot of sacrifices. So they're passing on the baton to us, and I'm grateful for those players now and the legacy they've been able to build and establish. And what we would be doing for the next generation of girls is continuing to pass that baton on and know that it is paying off. Like, we've seen the teams evolve to 10 now from 4.
Yeah.
So we know it's working. We know that this game is bigger than ourselves, and we know that there's a greater purpose in ourselves. And when you see those talent come through, you know, and you see them find it a lot easier. You see themselves enjoying it. And the opportunity is not limited. Like, you see the male players now, they're fathers to sons, they're fathers to daughters. And the opportunities that their son have, now their daughters have. And that's what's really exciting, is opportunity is there for you, make the most out of it, and it's okay to sometimes make mistakes, because that's how you learn and grow as a person. And have no fear. Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
I feared it because it was a unknown. I feared it because you didn't think you were good enough. But if you trust and you've got the right support network around you, the sky's the limit, and you make really great memories. And I, if it wasn't for this game, I wouldn't have made the memories and the friendships that I have made, and lived the experiences that I have. So give everything a go.
Yeah.
You know, live life with like no regrets, and have a really great support network. But make sure you work hard, work ethic, and be really resilient. Because it's rugby league. You know, things happen, injuries happen, but you got to be able to be resilient and move on, and know that you'll never give up. And you want the team around you to help you and build you and give you all the confidence that you need.
Big thanks to Simaima for sharing that beautiful advice for the next generations of girls too. We know she's a great rugby league leader, but she's an awesome role model too.
Yeah, she is, and she's very willing to give her time and energy to any cause that is important to her. And it's she's always speaks like that to the next generation coming through, and she's always very aware of who's gone before her and what she needs to do to make sure she can pass that jersey on in just as good a state. So, yeah, she's a wonderful role model for the game.
And a pretty good player too.
Oh, she's pretty good, yeah, you're not wrong. Tipped her for the Dally M this year, I did. No pressure, Mimes.
Ooh.
Yeah, no pressure.
Also this week, we have for the first time put it out to you guys, the people who are listening to the NRLW Weekly podcast. If they had any questions that they wanted to hear you answer, Ruan, they could send them through via the NRL on 9 Instagram. And so we've got just a couple here that, I'm going to see if you're all right to answer.
Okay.
All right. This first one comes from Dom. She's asked, I don't know. They have asked.
Dom has asked.
Dom has asked top 5 women's rugby league players ever.
Oh, top 5 ever. Well, I think Karen Murphy's probably number 1 for me. Number 2 would probably be between Tani Norris and Nat Dwyer. They've been incredible for our sport for such a long period of time. So they're 2 and 3. I'm not sure exactly in what order. And then I would also have in there Lisa Fiola from New South Wales. So she's a dual international as well. She's one of the assistant coaches at the Raiders. She's an incredibly well-known figure at New South Wales Rugby League, and she was so strong. She was an incredibly strong outside back and moved into the forwards as well. So Lisa Fiola's up there for me personally. And then I would also probably put Tasha Gale in there. She did so much for the sport when, especially in New South Wales, when just nothing existed. She was a Gillaroos captain. She was absolutely amazing. And then she still has such a great presence in the game too. So I think they'd be sort of the ones from the past that I would put in my top. And then there's a couple of players in this that are still playing that deserve to be in there as well, but I won't embarrass them by putting them forward. But I think everybody knows those names that I would be saying.
And plenty of trailblazers in that list,
Absolutely.
I think. Next question comes from Eddie. If you could change one rule in the NRLW, what would it be?
Not really a rule, but we are working on a prototype for a smaller ball for women. It's something I know that the NRL are working on, and Freddie's spoken to Steeden. He's getting a little mock-up made, and the smaller ball. So in the Northern Hemisphere, they trialled the size 5 ball, and they found they could pass it further, but it didn't fly the same when it was kicked. Right. So that's why there has to be a new one made up, and it's between the 5 and the 6 sizing. And it sort of works out to be like 33.3 centimetre, the circumference. So it's very specific. And it's kind of that sort of seems to be the sweetish spot. So we're just going to have a look at the prototypes and then test it out, see how it goes. But if that is something that is successful, like it can fly as well in a kick, I would love to see that changed. And then you can put the forward pass technology in that ball as well.
Yeah.
Because we trialled that. Did you know we trialled that a couple of years last season? In the NRLW it was trialled.
Wow.
And it was found to be found all the ones that the referees did and a couple that they missed as well. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Science and rugby league. We love that crossover. Yeah, that's super interesting. And
Yeah.
how amazing would it be to have like an NRLW like Australian invention just for our women's game?
yeah,
So cool.
very cool.
Last question from the listeners from Boo.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple of years' time, will the NRLW have 3 games of Origin and play 80 minutes? These are questions that a lot of people have asked.
Yes. Well, Boo, I feel like it'll be 3 games in Origin next year.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be happening not even a couple of years. I think it's going to happen very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I believe that the quality and the way that the series finished this year, you can't ignore that it deserved a 3rd game.
100%.
Yeah, and I will still push that one of those games must be in Townsville every year.
Yeah.
It's beautiful up there. Could very easily winter in Townsville.
Yes.
And yes, it will expand to 80 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we have 10 interchange at the moment.
Yeah.
It'll probably stay at 10 interchange if we go to 80 minutes, just until they sort of get their heads around it, and then they can condition the bodies and the trainers can condition the players to exist through that 80 minutes and do it without increasing any kind of injuries towards the back end, which was the main reason it was reduced in time to start with.
Right, okay.
So it was reduced in time because of injuries at the back end of each half. So, yeah, when these players are in professional systems, when it becomes full-time, yes, it will go to 80 minutes.
And do you think that will take a few more years to get to 80?
I think it'll take a couple.
Yeah.
It'll take a couple. And obviously they still play 80 at international level because it's international rules. It's different. But, yeah, we will see that increase. And I don't think there's any rush, any great rush to do it until we sort of get a little bit more data around that injury and injury prevention and ways to prevent significant injury at the back end of those games.
Yeah, that's super important. Thank you so much for your questions.
Good questions.
Yeah, we'll definitely be asking you guys for some every single week. So if you're listening, if you've got some things that you hear us talk about and you're like, oh, I want to ask about this, definitely remember them and send them through. Now, we're almost here at round 3 for the NRLW. Again, another Thursday night game to kick us off. And you can watch every single NRLW game live and free on 9 and 9 now. Starting with Thursday night at the SCG, Roosters versus Dragons. What can we expect?
This is going to be an absolute firecracker of a game. And this is going to be another club doubleheader.
Yes.
So the women will play NRLW and then the men will play NRL afterwards. So I love these club doubleheaders.
Yeah.
And we saw it with the Raiders on the weekend, the Sharks the weekend before.
Yeah.
It's just set such a great vibe around the place. So excited about that whole atmosphere as well. And especially when you look at the way the Dragons played on the weekend, the way Racine McGregor controlled the game for them, that is going to be really cool to see because the Roosters are going to be firing.
Yeah,
they're going to be firing. Like, you never see them have a bad game 2 weeks in a row. And not that they were bad last week. It's just that the Raiders
We're better.
were just so good.
Yeah.
And they just found another gear really well. And they starved the Roosters of good ball. So I think this is going to be a really good tussle because the Dragons are coming off a high and the Roosters are stinging after the weekend. And when you look at the list of players in both teams, the one-on-ones are going to be absolutely incredible. Baxter versus Berry at fullback. Like, Tegan has been amazing for the Dragons. So, again, she would have been another honourable mention for the weekend. She was so strong. Yeah. And then you look in the centres as well, Keely Brown and Bobby Law. Bobby Law on that left edge with Tyler Nathan Wong for the Dragons. That's going to be really dangerous as they just get a bit more confidence. They start seeing each other's movement. But the way Tyler can run a little downline and then slip the pass to Bobby, who's just hitting the right angle at the right time, it's absolutely magic. So that's going to be really exciting to see and see them up against the world-class pairing of Surgis and Kelly as well. And then obviously I've spoke about the halves. This is going to be a big test. You know, I think the Raiders were really smart. They sent a lot of traffic at Joss Kelleher over the weekend because she's their main kicker. So they sent a lot of traffic at her to try and tire her out. And, you know, whereas Ray just had it on a string. She didn't have hardly any traffic coming at her. Not that she shies away from it, but she just had so much time with the ball. So she was, it's going to be absolutely devastating. And the forward pack, Tuila Fotumuala starting, I think it's a good move for the Roosters. She is the original jukebox Like, she just used to hit everything that came away. She just had the greatest hits, and they just kept coming. So it's great to see her back, see her playing NRLW too. So, yeah, this is going to be a really exciting game. And if Grace Hamilton is cleared, we hear that sort of 24 hours from yesterday that we're getting approval from the NRL. It's great to see her back. Yeah. And only 2 weeks ago playing for the Wallaroos. So, yeah.
All these cross-code superstar athletes, it'll be very exciting to see that. Can you give me your tip? Or is you seeing it's
I'm tipping the Roosters at home.
Yeah.
They're at home. They're stinging from last weekend, but it is going to be a tight game. And I expect that Ray McGregor will have a massive impact on how this game is played.
Okay, there you go. Then we get to Saturday, and the first game of that day will be the Cowboys and the Broncos at Townsville. It's the Cowboys' first home game, and they've come off this great win. Another Queensland derby.
Yeah, and a great destination too.
Yep.
Again, I'm plugging Townsville in winter. I love it. And I think someone who stood out to me for the Cowboys was Naikore on the wing. She was fabulous. Her movement was so good. But everybody in the Cowboys really stood up and really everybody contributed to that win and on the weekend. And I think what I loved most about that win is that when they got ahead with that early field goal by Kira Dibb, which I thought was the right time to do it. Yeah. 7 minutes to go. People aren't really expecting you to go for a field goal that early, but it was a great setup.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't put the guns back in the holsters, that they just kept playing footy. That's what excites me about this weekend because the Broncos do the same thing.
Yes.
The Broncos will continue to come at you and come at you and come at you until the last minute. And we saw in their game on Thursday night with the Titans, obviously, second set of golden point. Yeah. And they just kept coming. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful kick by Lauren Brown that got the Titans the win there. So I think Tassie Gray will be looking for a big game for the Bronx, and she'll be looking to have a massive impact and try and shut down, especially Shania Power, try and keep her from, getting too busy with the footy because she's so powerful. And it's going to be really, really good. Like I spoke about Muka, who had big impact. China Palata to move from the wing in round 1 to play in the middle in round 2. Like I made a joke on air. It took me 10 or 11 years. Yeah. I started as a winger and a centre, and it took me 10 or 12 years to move into the middle. So she did it in a week. Yeah. Impressive. And she was so strong as well. So that's going to be a really good one. And then seeing Dibb and Brigginshaw go up against each other too. That is going to be a real battle of the kicking games. Obviously, Kira is their main kicker for the Cowboys, and she has an incredible boot. Like she kicked a 30-30 on the weekend. Insane. It wasn't even a 40-30. It deserves to be called a 30-30 because it was just a brilliant kick. And and Ali, we saw her with those really lovely touches, short kicking game throughout that Titans game where she just created something out of nothing, and that's what she can do. So this is going to be a really exciting clash, and I want to tip the Cowboys at home, just because they're at home. I'm tipping the Cowboys, but again, I think this is going to be a very tight game. There's only going to be a handful of points in it.
I feel like we're going to be saying that about every single one of these games, which is such what a great privilege. Then, following that game, it's your Sharks up against the Titans at home, standalone game at Shark Park.
This is going to be a real test for the Sharks. Obviously, they've been tested with some injury, tested with suspension as well. So how they handle that is going to be really, really important. I think that Sere No Toka, when she came on, her new nickname that Gus called it a thief. So I thought I'll call her the burglar. Yeah. She's the burglar.
How many one-on-one strips was it?
She got 2 successfully, and a third one she almost came up with as well. But she brought plenty of energy and plenty of competitive edge when she came on. And, I think probably a standout for the Sharks on the weekend was Anessa Biddle. Yeah. She was massive. She ran for over 250 metres and she had something like 130 post-contact metres. Wow. She just tore it up, just absolutely tore it up. So keep an eye on her as this weekend goes. But what the Sharks need to do is they need to be more disciplined with their defence. Too many penalties, just letting teams march up the field, and then you're just constantly chasing your tail. So I know that Tony's really working on that this week, making sure that they can just tidy up that facet of the game, because the Titans are full of running.
Yes.
I spoke earlier about Shannon Marto, how much metres she eats up, and then Jess Elliston is so dangerous with her footwork, a little bit wider, and then Vanny at the back, who is having a blinder of a season already.
Superstar.
They have strike all over the field. And if you give them penalty and possession too much, you're constantly going to be on the back foot. So it's going to be really vital that there's discipline from the Sharks, and the Titans, they have just I was just so impressed with their game on Thursday. That ability to absorb pressure and then turn it around and come up with such attacking flair off the back of it, which also had a lot to do with Georgia Hale and her work rate that she does through the middle, and the amount of tackle she comes up with is just phenomenal. And don't forget, she came from a half. She was a half.
Yeah.
And she's moved into this ball-playing lock position, and she's making 50-odd tackles, 40, 50 tackles a game. It's crazy.
Wild.
And, she has wonderful experience. And same Brittany Brayley-Narty.
Yeah.
Nutty is another one that has fantastic experience. Steph Hancock, big experience. Riley Jorgensen, excited to see her progression throughout this year. She was very impressive. I'm tipping the Sharks at home.
Okay.
But it's going to be really hard. It's going to be tough.
All
It's going to be a really tough game, but the Titans are absolutely going to take it to them.
Yeah, I think I'm tipping the Titans in that one, just at how good they were last
They
week.
were.
But it'll be, a cracker. Then we get to Sunday, and the first game on Sunday will be the Eels versus the Knights. And so we haven't spoken about Parramatta at all in this episode. And it feels like they're off to a little bit of a frustrating start, I'm sure, for the girls. And now they've got a big task, a grand final rematch. Yeah, what are you thinking about with this one?
Yeah, it's been a rocky start for them. It has. But also, let's not forget that they're missing their two biggest signings for the year. Elsie Albert's still out. Rachel Pearson's still out. So Elsie, plenty of work up front, sets the tone, creates a lot of go forward for them. And off the back of that, Rat would be controlling, moving them around the field, coming up with last tackle options, which is what they have been struggling with, just to come up with those last tackle options. So when those two come back, it will add a different complexion to this side. But what this difficult start does for the Eels means that all of these younger players have to step up and they have to move into that space, and they have to learn on the fly as quickly as possible, and they have to be able to problem solve on the go. So there's, the old saying of pressure makes diamonds.
Yes.
Is true, because the more pressure you're under, the more you figure out how you work under that pressure and what you can come up with. So while it is difficult for them, there's still some really good signs in that team. They've got a lot of spark. I know that I was really excited to see Nakia come on and play, but she played on an edge.
Okay.
Whereas personally, and I'm not telling Dean how to coach, but I like her where she can get her hands on the ball more frequently.
Yeah.
So I like her to jump in either at that 9 or that lock role, where she can just read a ruck and go, because that's her strength. She can just read a ruck and go. And she's another one who's a great competitor. So I'm not sure how he will use that rotation, but that's what I love about Nakia's game.
Yeah.
And obviously then when Elsie comes back, they'll starch up that front row as well. But Talisha O'Neill's moved into the front, and they've still got Ruben Cherrington and Kennedy Cherrington in there too. So they've got plenty of aggression, and they've got that footy in them. They just need to sort of now not panic and just start putting it all together. But I can understand why they'd be frustrated.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the Knights, and this is where the Eels have to be really careful, because the Knights, after their loss last weekend, where everybody expected them to win, they're going to come out absolutely firing.
Yep.
And I know that Jessie Southwell is an incredible competitor. She hates losing.
Yep.
And that's what makes the best players the best, because they will not take losing sitting down. And she'll come out with everything on the weekend. So it's going to be really another tough task. I think Rimmer Butler was huge.
Yeah.
She was so good for them when she came on. She had a 10-minute stint to start the game, and she ran for 94 metres in 10 minutes.
Ridiculous.
So she just ran riot. So looking for another one, big one from her. And obviously then off the back of that, you've got Caitlin Johnston and Yazzie Clydesdale that can have that leg speed and just punch holes on the edges. So the Eels need to be really careful here, because the Knights are going to come out swinging.
Yeah. And they've got Hannah Southwell back.
And
finally.
Hannah is back. How
very
good
exciting.
is that? I'm really excited. So then, and that's the other thing. Her game is a defensive. She's a defensive-minded player, and she's an incredible defender. So that will then just create or help the Knights' defensive structure really starch up. And, I think I'm tipping the Knights for this one. Even though it's an Eels home game, I'm tipping the Knights.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely be bolstered by having a leader in Hannah back. It'll be a good one for sure. And then the final game of the round, you'll be down in Canberra at JIO Stadium for the Raiders and the Tigers, both off red-hot wins. This one could be the game of the round.
Well, I'm actually tipping this one as the game of the round because both of these teams are coming in, like you said, with red-hot form. They really are. The Raiders game last weekend was so complete. Yeah, it just was so well-rounded and showed a lot of resilience and a lot of toughness and also just a lot of really good football nous, which I loved. And then the Tigers, I spoke to Noddy after the game and I said, I was really impressed with their second half in round one because they won through their attack. And then round two, I was impressed with them because they won through their defence. That's what impressed me about them, is that they won pretty with points and then they won gritty with defence. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of game this turns out to be on the weekend, because both teams have strike attacking. Both teams love defence, like Mima loves defence. So does Kezi. So does Salah Tongatuki. And then off the back of Salah through the middle for the Tigers, Ebony Pryor has been so good for them. She has been just so bright and energetic, and she's just finding space really, really well. And then obviously we spoke about Jakaya in the game, but also Bo Vete Welsh to come back from an ACL the way she has. Pretty impressive. So this is going to be a really tough one, but I'm tipping the Raiders because they're at home.
Okay.
Because they're at home, and again, this is going to be a couple of points in it, I feel. A handful of points.
I'm really excited about that game, as you've described. Such exciting teams. Oh, we are so spoilt with all this incredible footy. It's going to be another great round.
Hang on, who'd you tip?
Oh, I was going to try and slip away with not picking there. I think I'll have to go with Raiders at home too, just because I saw and felt how it felt last week. It truly has made a very big difference.
I can't wait for the Viking clap.
I'll
be there in person. I can't wait.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure you're hitting subscribe wherever you are listening. Tune in every week because we're the place to be when it comes to NRLW news. We get to talk about all this incredible footy every single Wednesday and answer your questions as we did for the first time this week. Thanks for being here, Ru. Love hearing your insight. I feel very prepared now for this weekend ahead.
Good.
Cannot wait.
Me too. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Come on,
Make
footy.
sure you
come on,
are.
Footy.
Yeah, come on, footy. Make sure you're tuning into all of those games too, which are all live and free on Channel 9 and 9 Now. And I guess we'll catch you next time.